So excited. We're practicing a little social distancing here with my good buddy, Nehme. So many great stories and topics we could dive into. Okay. First and foremost, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. You look very healthy. You didn't pack on any pounds with the COVID. You look fit and strong as always.
15.
Yeah, he doesn't have the quarantine 15. He's looking slim and trim, mean, ready to go. How's everything been?
Good.
All things considered.
Hanging in there. I was very fortunate to start my own company 3 years ago, consulting. So I was outside of the casinos 12 hours a day now, so I don't have to worry about necessarily interacting, although I have clients on the strip. But yeah, it hasn't been easy for anyone personally or professionally, but I think the big question now is what's the future of the industry look like?
Yeah, that's a whole topic we will dive into. So when I met you, you were over at the Wynn. You were the CMO at the Wynn. Can you basically give us a little bit of background? How did you end up in Vegas?
Sure. I mean, doesn't everybody have a how the hell did you end up in Vegas?
Let's dive into that.
So, I think Vegas, I'm one of the new breed, the new school of execs that are in the hotel casino industry. And when I got here in, 18 years ago now, I grew up in Boston. I went to journalism school. I wanted to be Tom Friedman, write books about the Middle East for the New York Times. And, so I did 5 years of international reporting. And then I got the itch to go to business school because it was the late 90s and all these companies with a C grade on their business plan were getting funded for millions of dollars. So I said, business is where it's at. So I went back east to business school. I went to Babson, which is known for its entrepreneurship program. So, and then right out of Babson, after 9/11, businesses like investment banking, consulting weren't hiring. I was on my way back to LA. I stopped in Vegas to visit my sister who was here, and she introduced me to some execs on the strip. And one thing led to another. 18 years ago, I got in with Sands, Las Vegas Sands, and Rob Goldstein, who was my mentor over there, was the president of the property, and he said, hey, we're going to open hotels in a place called Macau. And at the time, nobody knew what Macau was. And he said, we're going to go public next year.
Far East, it seems so far away.
Exactly. And he said, we're also going to go public. So, I got a great chance to grow because I had an MBA and there wasn't a lot of people who were like traditionally schooled in business out here. It was either you had a casino background, or you had a hotel background. And these are like multi-billion-dollar enterprises have 7 lines of business under one roof. And I was just lucky to get in there, and I was able to get a good responsibility at a young age and just kind of grow with the company. And so we ended up opening 9 mega resorts in like 9 years. And like that's never been done, the pace of construction in China and Singapore and elsewhere. So, I just, 9 years at Sands. Then I got recruited to run brand marketing at Wynn. 4 years at Wynn, and then after that, I got recruited by Bill Foley to be the first CMO of the Vegas Golden Knights hockey team.
So I mean, you basically have 3 titans that you've worked for. You went with under the Sheldon regime, Steve Wynn, and then Bill Foley here with the Las Vegas Knights. I mean, what an incredible story. If I take a step back and you reference something, you were doing international reporting. Mm-hmm. Can you touch on some topics of what you may have covered or anything?
Sure.
Anything? I always I think of Spy Game. That comes to mind with Brad Pitt, and you're a good-looking guy. I can imagine you as an international savant. You have any interesting stories from reporting abroad?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was fun because I'm like you in the sense that mixed parentage, right? I got a Lebanese dad, a Canadian mom, but I was born and raised in the U.S. and so I was kind of like too ethnic for the American crowd, but too American for Lebanon. When I moved after college, I went right to Beirut, and I started reporting on post-war Beirut. So, at the time in 1998, I had a newly minted journalism degree, and Beirut's this dynamic place. I know you've been there many times. Very small country, 4 million people, but it has a daily French newspaper, a daily English newspaper. It has 3 French, Arabic daily newspapers for a population of 4 million people. It's really amazing. It's a great media hub for the Middle East. So I was reporting on post-war stories like the optimism of rebuilding downtown Beirut, When the NBA had a lockout, they sent a team to Beirut to play against the Lebanese national team. I wrote stories about basketball coming to Lebanon. I wrote society stories about, an event that happened at the American Embassy. I wrote about, all these expats, right? These Lebanese who were educated in Paris, London, New York, they all moved back in the late 90s. They had all this optimism. They were starting businesses. They were bringing capital back. They were launching brands. They were launching everything, like pet shops. They were launching karate studios. They were launching clothing companies. It was a really optimistic time, and I was considered myself an expat, even though I was born and raised in America. But I felt like very tied to my dad's Lebanese roots, especially because of the 20-year Civil War. I wanted to get to know the company a bit, and the country a bit, rather, and there was a lot of optimism in the late 90s. Flash forward to early 2000s, in the mid 2000s, like a lot of that optimism went away. The country's in a tough spot right now, but it's such a vibrant little country, and you can't help but love it.
I mean, anyone asks me, I say my favorite place to go in the world is Beirut.
Yeah.
I mean, it has everything, and even though it is going through, difficult and challenging times economically, socially, what have you, the food is incredible. The people are just so hospitable. I think it's just within the culture in and of itself. Art scene, obviously nightlife, if that's what you want. I mean, it's definitely. Can you tell us one or two of your favorite things or inside tips around traveling to Beirut?
Beirut's great. I mean, it's so multicultural. It's so cosmopolitan. I mean, you will have a rooftop party in West Beirut on somebody's roof, and you'll have the best cuisine, the best wine, and you'll have people from the Gulf, Europe, South America, Scandinavia. They'll just all be talking, and it would be like Hollywood central casting, where they said, let's find the stereotype in each ethnicity and walk of life. But yet they happily coexisted in Beirut. And if you look at old pictures from the 60s and 70s before Beirut descended into war, there would be like a donkey with its farmer walking through West Beirut, and there'll be a Mercedes right next to him, and there'll be someone in a bikini, and there'll be a woman in full hijab covered up. And it really is a melting pot like that. And it's kind of cliche to say, but you go to Beirut and you just never know what you're going to get. But I made so many great friendships. And really, like, people, in order to weather the 20-year war, they really banded together, and friendships meant so much. That's why when you meet people who are from there, when they say my cousin or my friend I grew up with, like, that bond is strong.
It's real.
Yeah. It's not like we in the suburbs of America, oh, he moved away, so I never talked to him again. But Lebanon, those ties run deep. And I still have an older sister who lives there now in the mountains. And
oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I love is you can ski in the morning and then drive down and be at the beach in the afternoon.
Totally legit. That's not a marketing slogan.
And have the Sunset Kasara Rosé.
Yeah.
Zaytuna Bay, love it down there. Go to Babel.
That's right. There's
nice
a lot of
shisha going on. Anyways, I'm wishing I could be there.
We gotta plan our next trip together.
Let's go. Once the borders all open up, I think you and I deserve a trip out there.
Yeah.
So if we go back to Vegas. Mm-hmm. So when you were bouncing, you went with Sands and then over to the Wynn.
Yeah.
I mean, to open up such powerhouse casinos under, billionaires such as, the prominent Steve Wynn and Sheldon Adelson.
Yeah.
I mean, can you explain, coming up through the ranks there, the experience, like the creativity you had to bring to the table, because it was such a different look that was brought to not just Vegas, but the rest of the world.
Yeah. I mean, it really was. If you look at like business school, jargon, it was a brand extension for Vegas to go into Macau. And it was literally taking a Venetian property and plunking it in China. And within a 3-mile flight radius was billions of people. And so it was a perfect brand extension from the point of view of like a traditional business school textbook. But there was no blueprint. The quality of hotels in old Macau, which had Portuguese, influence and things like that, was like a 3-star hotel. And all of a sudden you plunk a 5-star Venetian Macau or Sands Macau or Wynn Plaza in there. It's amazing. So, but yeah, I like to say actually in 13 years, I joke with my wife, it took me 13 years to move 500 feet because I went from Venetian to like Wynn.
Literally
across
across
the street. But in reality, I worked for the biggest operator in Sands, and then I worked for the best operator in Wynn. And so I really got the schooling and the best of both worlds. What's like Mr. Adelson is terrific as a real estate developer, business model with conventions is laser focused. And then Steve Wynn, he wanted to be the best hotelier in the world. On a grand scale, and he achieved that. And so the guest service, the product delivery at Wynn is just, is unmatched.
So how do you, when you talk about being the best hotelier in the world, which, I mean, we all know the impressive, things that he has done, starting even back at Bellagio with MGM back at that time, and then transitioning over into Wynn. Like, how do you market that? Because we're in a digital world where I can pick up my phone and go, I'm the best hotelier ever.
Yeah.
And a lot of people believe it, and they'll believe the BS that comes out of there. And of course you have to back it up. And we always say the unauthentic, they get, people will uncover them and we'll know that they're fake. But, in a lot of ways there are still people who are able to get away with it, at least for a long period of time, that truly aren't the best. So how does one, when you have those assets, go out and market them and do so in an authentic manner that is, something that draws people in, that they actually get to see it, and when they experience, the experience actually meets to what the lip service is saying.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I always identify, just by virtue of being Lebanese who have a whole entrepreneurial history, then going on entrepreneurial business school, I always identify with the owner-operators. So MGM and Caesars really weren't my cup of tea, because they grew by acquisition.
Right.
And Venetian and Wynn were owner-operator led, and business model focused. And so it is hard to be authentic with your marketing, but it's really, the culture is driven in those. At the time, in those companies, the culture was certainly driven by the visionary entrepreneurs. And at both properties, actually, you would walk through the halls and people would say, like maybe someone would call and want to do a partnership. And in both companies, they'd say, that's not us. Like, I think brand marketers make a mistake. If you can't, on the back of a card, which we all had to carry in our wallet, the service standards of Venetian and service standards of Wynn, if you can't in one sentence say, that's not us, like, know who you're not, right? Yeah. Then you're not doing a great job with culture. And
so give me like what's that? Give me an example of that's not us. Like, if we just use Wynn.
Yeah,
like, what would be something that, you have everybody coming to you like, no, it'd be a great partnership. Sure. Come on, look what we can do. Wow.
Absolutely. I mean, look, you got the difference between Wynn and Venetian is a house of many brands, right? They want to bring in the Wolfgang Pucks. They want to partner. Whereas Wynn in the early days owned and operated everything. The Encore Beach Club, they said, we're going to have the best pool club. It's going to be like Ibiza. It's going to be like the French Riviera. We're going to have the best steakhouse. We're going to have,
one of the best.
Absolutely, right? They did a great job.
SW, it is one of the best.
Yeah, so Wynn backs it up because they invest. They invest in the quality of product, and they also invest in the marketing. My photography expense were insane. I would fly in an amazing photographer to take one photo of the exterior of a restaurant. It just the amazing imagery. And so with Wynn, we made a clear direction in marketing at the time where we didn't really put people in a lot of the marketing imagery. It was the design and decor sold the place. Because a lot of times when you put somebody, that casino full page ad every casino does with the shocked couple, rolling the dice. Exactly. If you... We had a test at Wynn where we'd be like, if you cover the logo, tell me what property that is.
Yeah.
And you couldn't, right?
No. It could be anywhere. Yeah.
You don't know if it's Caesar's Tahoe or if it's, the Suncoast. Yeah. And so we always did that. Is that us, right? Can you cover the logo? And people would say, I don't know what property. I don't know what the company that is. But with Wynn stuff, there was a singular focus on the logo, a singular focus on the brand, and then a singular focus on the imagery, which was super consistent. People would come to us with some entertainment partnership, or they want to do a show in one of our theaters, and we just know that's not us, that's not our crowd, that's not our core competency. The beauty of Wynn is when they, there's people willing to pay a high cash rate for that room. And when you change the mix of, you don't comp everyone in casino, you have to make up for that business with cash room paying customers.
Yeah.
Do you have that?
Yeah.
And they did at Wynn. There's a lot of different people willing to pay, for that goodwill, that brand goodwill of Wynn. And that's why I think they've done a great job during COVID-19. Matt Maddox has stepped up, been very decisive. And even
from the beginning, I mean, they had thermal scanners, and people are up in arms. But now, candidly, it'll probably be the gold standard as to what happens when you walk into a major resort or casino or sporting event or anything.
And even the Montage CEO I read a Forbes article. He said we look to Wynn. Everybody in and outside of Las Vegas looks to a company like Wynn, because Wynn sets a very simple standard: it's be the best. And don't cheap out, and invest in those core areas. And Matt Maddox had gotten a Georgetown doctor on the payroll right away. As soon as COVID-19 happened, he started getting advice from out-of-house doctors. And so, with Wynn, it had very unmistakable commitment to guest service, decor, design. It's all I actually, like, when I do my keynote, I say Wynn is like the Apple of the hotel casino industry, because they design a resort just like Steve Jobs designed a smartphone. You don't think you need, and then you experience how integrated everything is, and you're like, how did I ever stay anywhere else?
How did I not stay there every single time?
Exactly.
So when you look at in bringing, so you mentioned Apple, new products to the market. So if we take Encore Beach Club, something of that nature, you are not an operator of a nightclub. You may or may not have had experience. Mr. Wynn may or may not have had experience with it. How do you even bring a new product to the market, and not just say, like a lot of other Vegas people, and we'll speak to Sands and other places that you've worked, where you bring in operating partners, or you bring in the Taos of the world who are experts in their own right, and just go at it on your own. I mean, one, it takes a shitload of confidence to do that, capital, and then at the end of the day, you have to believe the team around you is going to execute. And so how within what you handled, bringing those new products to life and having to market them, because it's like, hey, what's Encore Beach Club? It's not Tao, whatever, or any of these other venues that are so prominent within the Las Vegas Strip. How do you go about bringing those new products to market?
Well, and that was a lot of my job, is being the storyteller behind a new product, behind a vision, and then trying to back into like the superhero origin story, right? Like, how did Encore Beach Club become Encore Beach Club, or how did our latest show, like Le Rev, how did Le Rev become Le Rev? But basically, I think what Wynn does really well throughout its history is, if you're going to open a beach club, in all candor, and this is a great business podcast where it's like you strip away the spin room.
Exactly.
If you're going to market 3,000 people on a Saturday to the young crowd, in all candor, don't have a 70-year-old running that division. Have people who live and breathe it. Have 30-year-old club guys that have management skills, but who are in that business and who know what's cool and what isn't. And so you have arbiters of cool, right? But then you have people like me who have maybe, that liberal arts, that writing background, who can approve that stuff, right? So you operate within bands, and then you have like layers of approval. So you're nimble, you're authentic, but at the same time, you don't stray too far from the core brand, Wynn, and how unmistakable. I mean, I'd have fights with the team. Why are you putting us?
Oh man, that sounds like an ego, room full of egos.
It was
like, what do you know about running a nightclub?
Exactly,
or a day
but
club?
At the same time, you put a scantily clad woman on a billboard.
Yeah.
I mean, you could fight all day. You could have a 6-hour meeting about, what does that mean to the consumer mindset, right? Is because at the end of the day, Wynn was on everything. That Wynn cursive logo was on everything, and that at the end of the day, we always asked ourselves that one question: could we put the Wynn logo on it, and could we feel that it didn't bring the brand down?
So has that changed the exact steps that you just articulated now in a new digital environment, where anybody be at home could be an influencer, and can impact potentially, who goes to your properties, who don't, or you're paying for, influencers to come through your properties. Or have you seen it change at all in how properties or brands Wynn or many of the other brands that you work with, the Knights, and you're looking at the Sphere here. What do you think now, given the digital environment or social platforms that exist?
Yeah, I'm actually, I'm worried a little bit about the land-based casino model and the geography-centered brands, because they're not really built for a digital world. We always went into it saying you're only as good as your last guest interaction. So you could spend $1 billion building a brand, but if your housekeepers are the last thing somebody sees and they had a bad experience, then your brand's not worth $1 billion.
Right.
So, but I think a lot of the marketing and infrastructure back in the day wasn't really made for a digital. It was made for a glossy luxury mag, but it wasn't. It was lean back rather than lean in, and now it's all lean in on the app. And so they're. But
is there like lean back even relevant, or is it dead today? Do you think?
For a certain age demo that consumes media, print, it's relevant, but I wouldn't, as a marketer, as a CMO, I don't focus the bulk of my spend on that. But you still, we were still doing the travel and leisures, the Condé Nast Traveler, we're doing the big spreads, right. But I'm amazed at this lockdown, how media consumption is up. And then I don't know about you, but I'm watching YouTube TV. Yeah. I'm watching YouTube. I'm watching algorithm-driven media devices. And if your brand's not there, then you're an afterthought.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because what I've noticed, I had this with a colleague today. We were having, our creative director, he was asking about something that was in the news. I'm like, I haven't seen anything in traditional TV news. I've shut that off. It's just, I don't even want to. Yeah. It doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. It's all poison in my mind. It's like, show me the facts and what's going on, data driven. Mm-hmm. And, when you look at brands that have pulled back, and obviously if there's no revenue coming in, you have to pull back, right? That's just a give take. You have to have the money to spend, but also brands that have really accelerated their presence during this time, and understanding, because you can't just go like, oh, well, everybody's going to be home, so let's make a bunch of YouTube ads like that. Mm-hmm. That ship had, like, if you weren't already in the game, you couldn't just ramp that up, or at least without spending a lot of money to get ramped up in fairly short order, which some did. And really, when you look at it, if you're not present within those digital platforms, you really don't have an identity.
Exactly.
And especially when things like this, I think it's just accelerated how pervasive the need is to have that strategy built out in today's world.
And a lot of them were print first, and then digital was an afterthought. You have to be a digital native, and you have to know, how to consume media. Like we only want to do glossy videos. We didn't want to do organic viral. And now, what gets the most views? Organic, authentic viral stuff. It's not the glossy, looks like an
highly
ad.
edited.
It's
perfect scenario.
Exactly. So, the beauty of Vegas is really the sum of the parts. And it's, if you start to strip away at the sum of the parts, right? The walk through the casino at 2 a.m. and you see a celebrity, or you get hot at the craps table, then you go to Lady Gaga, then you go to a Golden Knights game, then you have the best meal of your life. Like, if you start stripping away the parts, you got to ask yourself, can Vegas weather that, right? Yeah. And because these properties have high overhead costs, and they can't run at 30% occupancy.
No.
They can't return capital to shareholders if you're only doing 50% occupancy, and so I think this next period is going to be a busy patch. But I joined the Golden Knights because I was tired of opening new hotels, in the sense that it's a formula, right? And once you open them, you check them in, you invite the journalists, you cut the ribbon. Like, I want to work for a startup, and this was a pro sports team that was historic for the city. So I raised my hand. I said, I'm in. And I was the only local exec they hired. Like, I was the only true Vegas local that had a high position there. And because they felt like they needed a CMO who knew the city, who knew how to unlock the casino partnerships and all that stuff. And so I helped. I felt like I added a lot of value. But we were also the first team born in the age of social media, the first NHL expansion team. The last NHL expansion team was Columbus. And that was like a minuscule franchise fee that they pay, small market, and they weren't born in the age of social media. We were having people, before we even announced the name, there were people bad-mouthing Vegas as a city. Why didn't you give the franchise to Quebec City? Hockey will die in the desert. Look at Phoenix, right? Yeah. Hockey will die in non-traditional markets. Look at Atlanta. So there was a chorus on Twitter of how they couldn't wait for the team to drop the puck.
No shortage of haters.
Yeah, total haters.
Stanley Cup, what?
So forget about the narrative of franchise or new having to be awful for 5 years.
Right.
Like we went to the Stanley Cup final the first year. It was miraculous.
We got spoiled with that whole thing. I mean, especially given everything the city was going through at that time. I mean,
absolutely.
It was definitely a very special time. Yeah. So transitioning. What goes into bringing a NHL team, a professional sports team, to market? Because I don't think they were called the Knights when they stuck their stake in the ground. I mean, you have to figure out what to call a team. Yep. How do you even go about that? What are some of the nuances in the background when you look to bring and brand a team and everything that you're discussing?
That was the super fun part, because finally, after being in siloed organizations, I was on the starting team for a $500 million hockey team that all of a sudden, like, all brand came through me, all marketing, but it was the 5 guys in a shop. Like, the hockey side was well developed. They had scouts, they had George McPhee, but the business side only had a handful of people. And so we had to scale and ramp up. And, thankfully, we were the 31st franchise, so you kind of get some guardrails from the NHL, like, here's how franchises should work. But
here's the SOP.
Yeah. Like a Dunkin' Donuts. But then there's a 20% you got to tweak for the local market, because so much of the revenue is generated locally. Right. So we only had 9 Fortune 1000 companies in all of Nevada, and you got to sell corporate sponsorship, right? Yeah. So a city like Dallas, they have, I think, 17 Fortune 500 companies like within Dallas. We had 9 the whole state. And so, you got to look at corporate sponsorship. You got to look at the fan base and whether they can afford season tickets and things like that. So I felt confident. It was funny. The ticket drive they did has now become the standard for cities that want a franchise, where you submit interest by email and say, I want it. So they had 16,000 people say, I want season tickets.
Yeah, I remember where we went and we said we would commit to this section, and we gave the money, and we were just kind of like, who knows, like, what's going to happen or not. And you'd make the commitment even before the team is even here officially.
Yeah, right? And that became like, now
but you have commitments, which are actually make it. This is not just I've got my buddy says, hey, would you buy hockey tickets? Yeah, no problem, bro. Yeah. No, you actually have hard commitments.
You got a deposit. And we know your name. We know you live on a residential street in Summerlin or wherever you live, and then it's a real person, right? Yeah. Gary Bettman was afraid of all the casinos buying up all the seats and then having no real local fans in those seats. But that really didn't happen. It happened to some degree with the bunker suites, but really 90% of the season tickets were local. They were Nevada-based, and they were like entrepreneurs. They were families. They were married couples. They were single guys, but they were fans, right?
So how do you come up with the name? Like, what's like the process around that?
Well, it was funny because remember the websites? They went from VegasWantsHockey.com to VegasIsHockey.com. And then all of a sudden on November 22nd, 2016, I believe, we flipped the switch. So when I got hired the same week, roughly, as the president, Kerry Bubos, we started in early November. And then they said, hey, you got to figure this out. We announced we're going to do the unveil in 3 weeks. And I'm like, 3 weeks? It's an election year. There was the elections that week. They didn't invite the right people. They had so much event management to do. And I had done so many events on the Strip. It was like old hat. Yeah. And we had Toshiba Plaza.
You already knew who you're going to go.
Yeah, so I called the right media. I invited the right VIPs. I said, this is how we're going to do it. And so I brought some good structure. We thought we'd get a few thousand. We got like 7,000 people. And Gary Bettman said, this is the most people we've ever had to unveil a logo and sell some shirts and caps, because that's all there was. Yeah. All we were saying is the team's name is XYZ. And so what was funny is so the name was already picked before I got there. Okay. And Adidas and the NHL, they were designing the logo. So they basically brought me in to an office. They had a locked drawer. They took it out. They say, "This is the name. This is the logo." I didn't even know what it was before I got hired. And so what happened was they, Bill Foley had talked to the media, and just like any pitch man, right, trying to bring a product to market, he was pitch, and so he was very forthcoming with details. So he let it slip that it was either going to be Golden Knights, Silver Knights, or Desert Knights. So there was all this chatter about the three names. There was people who wanted a cyber squad on domains. There was all this stuff. So it was that was challenging, right? And he did the same thing with the minor league team, with like people know like, potentially what the names are. So I thought it was going to be Silver Knights because we're the Silver State. And then they told me Golden Knights, and I'm just like, I can work with that. I can work with anything, right? As a marketer, you got to be able to work with anything. But keeping it a secret until the unveil is very hard because you got T-shirts and caps coming from Adidas. You got retail
How's
people
like a box
unboxed.
not end up at the wrong? It's like, oh yeah, your shipment was dropped off over, around the corner, and somebody's opening it up. It's like, Mom, look, I got all this cool Golden Knight shit. It's like, what? What's a Golden Knight?
Exactly. Now that would be on Twitter. That would be so fast now. And then the cat. So I was afraid it was going to leak, and then nobody would go to the event.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
and
like,
we had
what's
the
the point?
commissioner, we had dignitaries, we had all that. But anyway, and then we unveiled it, and we sold 6 figures worth of shirt and caps that one night. Like nobody had any merch. The only one that had merch was Adidas that had the logo, that originally designed the logo. So all the other stuff with the licensed retail was coming, but we had shirts and caps from Adidas, but we sold 6 figures worth in like 3 hours. It was crazy, and I knew it was going to catch fire. So I fundamentally believe the city had enough people who had enough discretionary income and who had enough of a connection to Vegas that they wanted their own team. And I really fully believe. I drank the Kool-Aid. I was on board. And if you look at the economics, the numbers bear out. We had, like, LA has 2 million people per pro sports team, and we had 2 million people, and we didn't have a pro sports team, right? So it was about time. We were big enough to be able to afford one. Now, can we swallow the Raiders? Can we swallow the Golden Knights?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. What do you think is going to happen now with the Raiders in town? I mean, there's a lot of buzz, obviously. It's
sure.
Raiders,
I mean, the Raiders,
NFL,
if you look at their
stadium,
that
thing is amazing.
It's gonna kill it. Assuming people can come within close proximity. I mean, I was in a briefing where they said 30% of season tickets were from out of state. Now, the Golden Knights were about 10%, right? So that's heavily local. The Raiders are going to bring a lot of out of town fans, which is going to feed the hotels. Yeah. So it's you're a savvy guy on the. It's the perfect marriage of pro sports, mass tourism, and 150,000 hotel rooms waiting.
In a city that can service it.
Exactly. And in winter, which is the worst, and on football Sundays. And Sundays
I think
tough occupancy.
Is December normally a high occupancy month here in Las Vegas? Nope. Not at all.
So November, when you think about it, it's perfect, right?
So you're a part of this new project right down the street here from the office, which is a Sphere of all things. Pretty crazy and incredible. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, my consulting firm, we have about 3 to 4 clients at a time where I really take a deep dive. I'm like a journalist who's embedded in the war, the group of war reporters or war soldiers. But I get really in, I roll up my sleeves. I try to figure out what the brand's trying to be and how I can help them on a micro level. So, we got sportsbook clients on the Strip. We got, I help a television network in LA understand the casino business. And I'm working on the MSG, the arena side with Sphere. Now, I'm not the public spokesman on the projects. I can't talk much about it, but I like taking projects to market that have no blueprint, and this is one of those projects. Just like casinos in China or a hockey team in Vegas, this is an arena that's like a giant sphere, 160,000 square foot screen that's above you, to the side of you, behind you. It's really gonna transform how entertainment is presented. So it's gonna be a site for all 5 senses. So you'll taste, touch, hear, smell, sound. Everything is gonna be so elevated inside there that it's not just gonna be that flat arena viewing experience. It's gonna be really immersive, and I know immersive is an overused word, but imagine Like, I'm just thinking, like, if we gave someone like creators, if we gave a Kanye West, if we gave some great Silicon Valley or Hollywood style creator and said, we're going to give you a year to create something for the Sphere, which only can be presented at this venue.
Right.
It's almost a new medium entirely. Imagine what they could come up with.
Oh yeah, I mean, with everything, all the senses that you have referenced. I mean, I think it's going to be the next phase in what entertainment really is, and the expectation of experiential, and how do you enhance that and take it to a whole new level.
Yeah.
And the way I look at it is who else is going to bring it to market but Vegas?
That's right. And you got Madison
You're not
Square
used
Garden,
to sensory overload coming
Exactly.
here. I don't know what else you're going to do.
For sure. I mean, like, Vegas is, the whole skyline of Vegas is full of crazy projects that people thought were too crazy to come to market. And spending $1 billion on a spherical arena that doesn't have a sports team anchor, is chalked up as one of those potentially crazy projects. But it's just going to be amazing because you take the history of Madison Square Garden Company, which has seen everything in New York, right? The kind of audacity of Vegas as a market, right? And then you take the 42 million people that traditionally come through here every year. I mean, it's a perfect.
The expertise of Tao and everything.
Yeah, Tao doing the food, Venetian Sands being the real estate partner on it. I mean, it's. If it opens in two years or so, it's going to be tremendous, and it'll become an accepted part of the skyline. And you'd be like, how did we ever not have this?
Yeah, of course. It's just kind of add it to the skyline. Yeah. You'll see the Sphere as well as everything else that.
So I think it'll be fantastic. I mean, they've been purposely very mum on the project in terms of details, pretty light on the details. But you guys drive by it every day coming to the office. We're
watching the progress. So we're there.
But it'll be wild. And the types of entertainment will be presented there, you can't just take that with a traveling arena show.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. And, I'll keep prodding you for more information as it goes. Sure. Slide over a couple cocktails. So, I've already tried that several times, even back at Wynn. I could get nothing out of him. He's a vault. So, essentially, you've established your career here in Las Vegas. And I know when you travel the world and you're a worldly man, people go, you live in Vegas? And you get the eyes light up. Yeah. What is it like? For those that don't know, what is it like kind of building your career, having your family here in Las Vegas?
It's been great for me. I mean, we've grown to love it, and I think everyone does. I mean, there's when people who are used to more traditional cities, cosmopolitan cities, cities that stress higher education, you go up through the traditional industries and educational institutions, it's a total shock. It's a total culture shock. When I first got here, the economics of the city seemed entirely skewed. It's like, wait a minute, you park cars and you make this much, or you're a server and you make this much, and then people with college degrees were on the lower side here in terms of the amount of people. So once you get over that initial shock, you realize a very entrepreneurial city, has a high quality of life, and you don't have to be a blue blood from Boston to achieve anything here. You can work your way up, right? And it's based on merit. So if you have a good reputation, you have a great work ethic, you can build something, and you can build it quicker than you could in a Manhattan or in a more traditional city. So we've grown to love it. My wife and I. She came here from Southern Cal. I came here from the East Coast. We kind of both arrived at the same time. We met here, and we've kind of built a life together. So I tell people the quality of life here is the best kept secret, because fundamentally it's a small town. You can drive end to end in about 30 minutes. But we have big city amenities that you wouldn't find in a mid-sized city like this. You got amazing chefs. You got amazing shows. You got amazing hospitality, the best hotels. And yet everyone still kind of knows each other. Yeah. So, it's great. And there's really they don't kill you with bureaucracy when you're trying to start a business or doing something like that. And, the cost of living is low enough. You can afford to take some risks and, without bankrupting your family. So, it's been great for us. It really is. So.
I mean, you definitely are a true Vegas success story. So, always great to have you around and hear about what's going on. Thank you. You're so tapped into the city. especially now since you've started your own firm. A few years ago, it's like you're into everything. Every time I talk to you, you're like, oh, now I'm on to these projects, and I added 5 more, and I'm like, oh man, this guy's in the know.
Well, it's fun because after 20 years of being an in-house marketer and an early employee at these high growth companies, and now I'm independent. I can talk freely. I can consult with who I want, with who I want to work with. So it's really freeing. It's been fun the last 3 years.
So if we look at, people are going to come back to Vegas after this. We know Vegas is an incredibly resilient city.
Yeah.
What are some inside tips? What are your favorite restaurants?
Yeah, man, we love to go off the strip. We love the chefs that kind of worked on the strip, but then
took the show on the road.
Yeah, went to the suburbs and are bringing that strip quality experience to like Henderson or Summerlin. But I love Wazuzu at Wynn because I love Pan Asian. Yeah. I love Thai food. I loved the old Delmonico back at Venetian back in the day. Yeah. And but honestly, my wife loves to cook, so we like to stay in a lot too. But some of the stuff like Vegination, the really innovative vegan stuff downtown, and we love those kind of places too.
And then how about things to do outside of the strip? So people come here, there's no shortage of marketing from these CMOs at all these major casinos as to come to my resort and see. Yeah. What are some hidden gems that you've found? When people come to visit you and your wife, that you maybe take them to, or areas to go visit certain things or even be active.
Yeah, I mean, we love Red Rock. I love cycling, taking the people who love the outdoor life. So you do the loop in Red Rock. There's also one River Mountain Trail in Henderson. So if you like cycling, that's always fun to do. But I love to do I've been consulting in the sports betting business the last couple of years on the strip, and there's some amazing sports books where you can literally watch football all day, watch basketball all day, but if you can't be at the Super Bowl and pay $10,000 per seat, like the next best place to watch any sporting event is a Vegas sports book.
Oh yeah, no, it's crazy here. It's so much fun, and it's really decked out. Yeah, you have everybody comes wearing their team's jerseys. Yeah. I mean, the enthusiasm, or even fight night in Vegas. Absolutely. You don't have to go to the fight. It's actually not even the best. The best night is just the energy around the town, and you just feel it. Everybody's dressed up, even if you're not sitting ringside or even going to the fight. It's just a great evening.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at the numbers and you find out like 300,000 people came to town for this fight, but there's only 20,000 seats.
Like what else were you doing?
Yeah, like where'd all these people come from? But the sports books, you can do VIP booths. You can walk up and place a bet. You can bring in food. I mean, it's just like you can have 20 of your friends. Like where else can you do that? You can't really do that anywhere. And then everybody has an opinion on a team, on a line. Everybody comes from somewhere else. It's so fun in that kind of respect. So I like the places where like you can be a VIP as a local.
Right.
You can reserve something in advance. You say, I want a private dining room in this restaurant, or I want a private sports book, and I want to watch the entire Patriots game because I'm from New England. So, those kind of things are great.
Get to that. we can't end on that note. All right. So what the Patriots fan? You
gotta love.
I mean, you were gutted. You were gutted right now. So I mean, outsiders looking in, there's a lot of non-Patriots fans out there, and simply because of the success of the Patriots and Tom Brady and Belichick and everything else. Man, what are you thinking about this next year with Tom going to the Bucs?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, Tom's generated a mountain of goodwill with me and with other fans. He's like Scottie Pippen right now, like underpaid for years.
I think, I mean, in that regard, yes. But I mean, I wouldn't compare him to Scott. He's more like an MJ. He's one of the GOATs out there.
But in terms of that, like he can after 20 years, he can call his own shots. I mean, in this day and age of, agents and salary caps and long-term deals and franchise tags, the fact that they kept a dynasty together long enough to win 6 titles, they're okay by me. And Tom can go to another team, and we'll see what him and Gronk do this year.
He's coming to town.
Yeah, I'll be at that game for sure.
There we go.
For sure. So.
Don't wear your Patriots jersey. It's called Raiders Stadium.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's funny. We when I worked for the Golden Knights, one of the hockey guys came up to me and he he goes, yeah, there's a thing called jersey flipper where like they're your fan, 40 games a year, and then twice a year when their original team comes to town, they flip their jersey. So like I would have been a Bruins, fan, and I would flip my jersey from Golden Knights for 1 or 2 games for the Bruins. So in towns where that's rampant, you'll see some jersey flippers.
Well, it's actually, and I mean, there's a play on that at the Knights game, where they act like the fan, the opposing team fan, and then they flip into a Knights jersey. So I think some of that actually is part of the entertainment. And one of the things, if you haven't been to a Knights game, I know you have, is the sheer entertainment value. You don't even have to be a hockey fan. I mean, it is so engaging. Loud and fun, and the entertainment there, it's amazing.
Yeah, we actually benchmarked that. We went to maybe a third of the stadiums, like the hockey arenas, before we launched a goal. Before we
get that job, I want to go. Let's go travel the stadiums.
We took a team.
We're checking out the entertainment.
Like San Jose does some fun things, because they're non-traditional, like Vegas was supposed to be, right? So they do the sharks on the ice with the pregame. But we went to like Minnesota. We went to all these other games, Anaheim. We went to Tampa Bay. We went to Boston, we went to New York, and looked at traditional teams, and the in-arena experience wasn't, at a lot of them, wasn't that great.
Right.
And we said, we have a brand new T-Mobile Arena. Yeah. We crush this, right? So we brought in a really good mix of creative people. We had some Vegas, entertainment types. I brought Mark Chinook in, because I worked with him at Wynn, and when Mark was he was the lead in Rock of Ages.
Oh,
and so I called Mark. I said, Mark, we got to bring you in to help pitch, your some business on the experiential part of fandom and stuff. And so Mark got brought in, and that's how he became an arena guy.
Yeah.
But really, we had a good mix of people: hockey purists, sports purists, and then Vegas people. And we said, we have to make this a show.
Yeah.
And I remember we had a Sports Illustrated writer who was embedded with us the first few months to write these long form pieces. And the quote I gave him was just like, we're the latest headliner on the Strip, and that's how I'm viewing it, because we got to bring the show. We got to give locals a reason to not go to Celine Dion, instead to come to a hockey game, and we got to give tourists a reason to try hockey, because a lot of times, like, you get a Chinese high roller, they don't know anything about hockey. You have all these loyalists who come back to Vegas year after year. A lot of them may not have been exposed to hockey. So now you do hockey the Vegas way, and it's a show. Oh, and now you can't go back the old way.
Well, that's right. Everybody I bring, and a lot of them are come here for meetings and such, and they're not all hockey fans. They come and they're like, "Oh man, this is like a hockey game. This is entertainment. Is this what hockey's always like?" I was like, "Hockey in Vegas," so.
Yeah, no, and that's what I tell my clients. I say, I'm the guy you bring in when you're spending $1 billion and there's no blueprint for this project before. It's not cookie cutter. Well, bring me in.
That to me is the best way, because you get to write your own destiny, create your own vision, and those sort of things.
And that's what's rewarding about it. And also that's a different ball of wax. It presents a lot of different a lot of people are good marketers when you give them a blueprint, or within a corporate
it's the cookie
structure.
cutter. I've seen some of them where you take them out of the corporate blueprint and they flounder. I've also seen others where, conversely, you give them the blueprint and they flounder. So it's kind of like you said, knowing who you are and knowing what you're not, more specifically. Well,
so I was always a quick study, and, to go from like manager, director to vice president, like that road isn't always for everyone. Right. And even within the hotel industry, it's very tough to match skill set with jobs. So, right. I mean, remember, 90% of these people are like frontline delivering guest service. And then there's really only like 10% back of house executive types, maybe 10 to 20%. And, there's not $1 million job around every corner. You kind of have to, you have to like flow like water almost, and you got to just gravitate, and eventually you'll find a position that you thrive in, or you'll leave and you'll have a lot of great skill set that you can take somewhere else. The challenge with people to go from MBA to CEO, to go like all the way through that traditional business school is the hotel casino industry doesn't have great training programs in the sense like in investment banking. Stick with us in 2 years, you'll have a fancy
years,
office.
Like here, then you're going to be a VP, then you're an MD, and it's kind of the roadmap is laid out. And this kind of zigzags all the way, and you have to adjust and thrive along each spot.
Yeah. I mean, I know guys that we opened Macau with, and then they were offering them 3-year employment deals in Macau. And they're like, why not? I have no kids. I'm not married. I'll work 3 years in Macau. And that totally changed the course of their life. But they were attuned to like seek out opportunity. And then when they got it, they rolled with it.
Yeah. And you have to be flexible. I think a lot of people are too rigid these days to where it's got to be the perfect thing. And there's no such thing. And then it's what you make out of it. And, how you take and thrive and learn from that opportunity and actually know what you want out of it. And it's not always just money or titles. Some of it could be exposure to these brilliant, Las Vegas Titans. I mean, a lot of people would pay to have the exposure you had.
Well, I got, again, when I got out of business school, Venetian didn't know what to do with me. They didn't hire MBA. I was the first MBA they hired, and they didn't pay MBAs, MBA type stuff. So I took a pay cut, and I said, I want to get in there for the company because I believed in the growth. And a lot of MBAs, either because of debt load or whatever, they just say, I can't work for that.
Yeah.
But I knew like, wow, this company's going public. They're opening up $20 billion worth of development. If I can get in, I can get a lot of great experience.
You'll navigate and do well.
Yeah. So, but I also lived in a place in Vegas where my cost of overhead was so much lower. I could afford to do that. I feel bad for a lot of kids getting out of school now. They're in San Francisco. They're in New York. They can't afford it.
No.
I mean,
no chance.
Yeah. Back in the day, nobody owned me. I could take a chance at a job that didn't pay as well for the experience. And so, all of a sudden it was go run entertainment development or go work in IT and set up all these systems. I learned a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, that's getting few and farther between, especially if you go to elite schools, law school.
Well, and you take on the debt with it. I mean, that's the problem.
Tough part,
it keeps skyrocketing, and you look at it, and it's like, what's the ROI?
Exactly.
Or how do I even, you look at medical school, dental school. I mean, how do you even pay? We sit and go through this. Our wives will totally get along about this.
But I will say this. I was a liberal artist. I needed the 2 years of business school to learn finance and accounting.
Right.
I wouldn't have got that any other way. So what I tell people is you're going to get an MBA one way or another. You're either going to get it in 20 years of working in something, or you're going to get it in 2 years concentrate.
Crash course.
But you're going to get it eventually. It's just a matter of how do you want to take it. And for me, I wanted to put the brakes on. I was young enough, go 2 years straight and then come out. And, I benefited because you can't open up, a $1 billion casino resort without knowing something about the rest of business and how it runs.
It's impossible. I mean,
it's impossible.
You can't, or you'll just sink, especially if you're you're leading that sort of project or initiative.
So I've been fortunate, but it's been great for me. And now I my firm helps other brands try to catch fire with experiential marketing and in setting up turnkey, soup to nuts type projects. So, it's been great. The last 3 years have been really fun.
Yeah.
I don't have to wear a tie every day, but I take my work seriously, and I get to work with people like yourself and strike partnerships that, if they didn't fit in the box before, I had to say no on them, but now I can bring in a lot of...
Yeah, you have a little bit more autonomy and flexibility into your show.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much. This was amazing. Great to get your insight. It's always great to hang out.
Yeah, thank you.
Glad you're safe and doing well. And, we'll see you soon.
All right. Knock on wood. Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks.